What if your intimacy held the key not just to better sex, but to unlocking your creativity, confidence, and deepest personal power? In today's episode, we're diving deep with the pioneers of modern Tantra, Dr. Elizabeth Meuth and Freddy Zental Weaver, on how we can all elevate our lives by connecting with our sexual energy in conscious, transformative ways. Welcome back to another transformative podcast episode of the Kink Your Way podcast that celebrates sex positivity, liberation, and the beautiful, diverse ways we express desire, intimacy, and power. I'm your host, Leann, and today I'm honored to be joined by two groundbreaking voices in the realm of conscious intimacy, Dr. Elsbeth Meuth and Freddy Zental Weaver. This powerhouse couple are the co-founders of TantraNova Institute in Chicago, authors of the best-selling book, Sexual Enlightenment, and creators of National Intimacy Day, which was on June 1st. Their work has been featured on Showtime's Sexual Healing, NBC's Starting Over, and even the White House's 2016 United States of Women Summit. Elsbeth and Freddy have helped thousands of couples and individuals around the globe create deep, lasting, soul-level intimacy. Whether they're teaching billionaires, innovators, or spiritual seekers, they bring a revolutionary blend of ancient tantric wisdom and modern neuroscience to awaken the sexual self and channel it into every aspect of life. Get ready to explore what it truly means to be sexually enlightened. Let's welcome Elsbeth and Freddy to the show. It is so amazing to have you both here with me today.
Thank you so much, Leann, for having us. And your introduction is like, you said it all.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, is that us? All of that?
And you put this so beautifully together.
Yeah, thank you for your
so
work.
Much. You are all of that and more. And that's what I can't wait to share all of the wonderful things about you two and what you have put together and what you do in your daily life. So let's get started. How did you come to share your sexual enlightenment message?
Okay, hi, Leann. Yeah, Freddy Zental here. So, well, we've had our institute here in Chicago for 25 years, but I was first introduced to, a big piece of the practices that we teach when I was 13 years old. And I was living in Hawaii, going through my puberty, spending a lot of time in the shower, as a lot of guys are at that age. My father at the time was a practicing psychiatrist and very enrolled in transformational practices of different, nature from the typical psychiatry. And so he gave me a book to read on how to integrate sex and meditation, sexual meditation. So that was my first introduction. Well, I loved it. My girlfriend loved it. But more than that, I had this dream, this idea to go on to college on athletic scholarship, but I didn't believe I could do it living in Hawaii at the time and so on. But I did, went on to college on athletic scholarship. And what really assisted me in changing my belief were these sexual meditation practices that we teach here at TantraNova. We've been doing for the last 25 years all over the world with couples and singles and individuals. So look forward to unpacking more of that with you today.
Absolutely. And you, Elsbeth?
Yeah, my story is quite different. I wish I would have had a dad who would have given me a book on sex consciousness when I was 13, but far from it. As you can tell, I didn't grow up in this country. I was born and raised in Germany and came to the United States in my late 20s due to postgraduate work in music. And a few years later, I got my doctorate in education, and then I moved on to become a management consultant. And I traveled the world. I had gotten very good at consulting. That was in the 90s. However, I was miserable in intimate relationships. I had this pattern of attracting unavailable men. And while that was exciting, most of the time I was alone. And there, I vividly remember this moment when it came to me that if I was not going to change that trajectory, I would end up without lasting intimacy and love in my life before I was going to leave this planet. And I was absolutely not willing to settle for that. And that was the moment when I said, okay, Elsbeth, you need to do something. So I went to a Tantra workshop. I had known about Tantra, but never delved deeply into it. And that really opened up a new world. And most importantly, it allowed me to see that I had held distrust towards men. You know, how can you attract a man who you can create lasting intimacy and love with if there's an underlying distrust? Now, this distrust was not obvious. I was not like a distrusting bitch running around. No, I was, inviting, charming, but underneath in the subconscious, that what we don't know from the conscious mind, that is where that resided. And the tantric practice is a wonderful way of tapping deeper into what's underneath. You know, when we want to have better orgasms, or when we want to feel more connected with another, or when we want to create this lasting relationship. And so, given that this opened up for me, I was inspired by it. I signed up for certification program, and then 6 months later, Freddy came into my life.
Ta-da!
And if I hadn't done that work, I would not have recognized him. I would have seen him. He's tall, looks like a basketball player. He's handsome. I love everything. But if there's an energetic misfit, like he being available and me not being available, because when you have distrust, you're not available. Although at the outside, you may look very available, but the inside is not. So by having cleared that, I was available. I could recognize it. And, within a few months, we decided to pull our resources and create TantraNova.
What an amazing story from both of you.
Hmm.
I know that I think where I connect on that is that I had to learn to love myself before I could be available and open to receiving love. It wasn't that I didn't have trust, although I had some broken intimacy and broken relationships, but I had never learned to love myself. And so I think that for me was step one before actually coming into the relationship that I was meant to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a discovery for many. It looks like because of our external referencing that there's no good men and no good women out there. But once we shift the inside, which Elsbeth's story and what I'm hearing from you, then we start to open up to what we see externally. It's like that's kind of like the quantum shift that happens. It's nothing. We're like creating the experience from the inside. We're not being subjected to it. The rain's just falling from the sky. I can't change the weather, but I can change how I feel about it. And so much of the practices that we teach are really working with what we call the altered state of what happens in the sexual experience. So forever we've been procreating with this energy, creating life. That's what it does. And the last 100 or so more years, we've been recreating with the development of contraceptives and having fun with this energy. And what we're sharing is how to co-create with this intelligent life energy. So when we are in this altered state, we are chemically shifted. We're more endorphin, serotonin, oxytocin, the feel-good hormones, where our body's in a chemical state of ease, more emotionally available, loving, open, vulnerable, receptive. So when we align that already altered state of awareness with awareness of breath energy and moving, and intention, like I want to create a beloved or work that's fulfilling, we are more unmasked and more vulnerable and receptive to the subconscious aspect of our beingness that comes from the clay that we've experienced our whole life. The good news is that we have this dream, this idea of something that's never been before. And to shift that requires shifting the clay we're looking into the world from. And so these are the practices.
Wow. Yeah, there is so much to all of that, and how we change, how we look inward, how we look outward, how we are open to learning our own love language and sharing that with another person. As she had mentioned, had she seen you on the street before she was ready for that, you would have just been another person walking down the street. But because she had done the work and she was ready for seeing that light in you, then it changed all of that for her. And that's what it was for me too. I didn't know I was ready to receive. And there was a lot in unlearning from previous relationships to learning that I could be loved and respected and appreciated and cherished by another person after I learned to do that for myself.
And it does require courage because, you've heard the term, the devil we know. And like the devil we know is the subconscious aspects of what we do to keep getting what we're getting because we know it. It doesn't necessarily serve us, but it hasn't killed us. The other thing we don't know, and it might kill us, So we have to be, courageous and continue to do our work. Yeah. And it's great to see people, create that for themselves in this life.
Yeah.
That they can
Get out
be
of those
happy.
patterns.
Yes.
Absolutely. How can Tantra and Tantric intimacy contribute to physical, emotional, and mental well-being?
Mm.
All right. So Tantra, that comes from East India, is an age-old tradition, over 5,000 years old. Really, through these practices, we learn more about our own energies. Because while we have a physical body, the way we experience our body is all based in frequency. So how come I'm saying that? When we look at sexual energy, that is the creative energy, that's the pleasure energy, it's the energy that brought us into this life. Without it, none of us would be sitting here. It is energy, it's a frequency. When we feel that energy, let's say in an arousal, there is a pleasure feeling, and pleasure is a sensation that, yes, emanates from our nervous system. However, as we experience it, it's a frequency. We cannot see pleasure. We cannot see a sensation. We cannot see when I feel cold. Yes, I may, have a blanket around myself, but the sensation of feeling cold, I cannot see. Neither I cannot see it, neither another can see it. So it's an experience, just as the love experience, joy, the experience of joy, of exhilaration, or of anger, of jealousy. These are emotions, and emotions are pure frequency. Again, we cannot see the emotion of love. We can feel it. And only the person who feels it can say, I love myself, I love you. Another cannot say for me, you love me. Really? How do you know? Yes, I may express it in certain actions, but that's not the feeling itself. Just as our thoughts, they are pure frequency. We cannot see them, we cannot touch them. However, they may have us, the circular thoughts, conversations that may run us, we don't run it, although we can also learn how to shift out of it. So if we want to locate these frequencies in 3 different places in our physical body, we can say the sexual energy emanates from the sexual center. In terms of the energy centers, there are 7. It's the first and second chakra or energy center. The emotional energy we locate in the heart center, feeling love, joy. That doesn't mean that I can feel it in my entire body. However, the emanation of that energy and the thought energy, the mental level. So in the tantric practice, we learn to integrate these three dimensions. Sometimes we call it the trilogy, and become more integrated. When we become more integrated between sex, heart, and mind, leading to the spiritual or the cosmic or the higher self, then we become more whole. We feel more whole, complete. And that is really, the key of the practice. Of course, there are multiple practices that we can cultivate and this may not happen overnight. It's almost like an acquired kind of awareness. And as you said earlier, the self-love, which really has to do with becoming more whole within oneself instead of looking for love outside, where I'm externally referenced, I become internally sourced. And in that internally being sourced, from which everything emanates anyway, I then, by integrating my sexual, my love and heart self, and my spiritual self, I flow within myself. Literally, I can learn to channel the energy from my sexual center in my heart center. Freddy calls it, when it's in a aroused state, not only sexual orgasm, it could be
A heartgasm.
the heartgasm, or connecting with my cosmic self. And we can have this connection then with another. We can connect heart to heart with our beloved, and later on we can, speak a little bit more about it. We can also connect our third eyes into the cosmic realm and breathe with each other. So usually we sit on each other's lap. I sit on Freddy's lap, and then we connect these energy centers and we circulate energy. And that may be actually a good thing also to talk a little bit more about circulating energy, if it's okay.
Yeah, please do. Actually, I'm drawn into it. And I think I've seen you do a share like what it looks like if it was connecting energy with a light bulb or just two energy sources. I think that is such a beautiful way to connect with your beloved, is through this energy source.
The thing about, energy, people oftentimes it sounds so woo-woo, and it's like, because we're so analytical and Newtonian, what's real is what I can see or feel. And yet, our lineage is this infinite, ad infinitum universe that goes on forever, single-celled amoebas, multi-celled organisms. I mean, and that's like our lineage. So we're just beginning to understand how energy, and we are energy, it's all energy, science will tell you that. So our thoughts are energy, and yet we have these thoughts from the past and these that come from our opinions and our agendas and our this and our that. So when we do some of these practices to just tap beyond that left brain analytical self, we start to remember, because this is where we started. In the womb, it was just womb service. We're just floating, and there's no worries. Our brain's not fully developed. Then we're born, and then all this stuff happens in life. And we have these opinions in survival and blah, blah, blah. So remembering this kind of thing reminds us of really what's available just beyond the disconnect. Stella could have been a contender, or this weather, or this traffic, or how could she, or this or that. And then once we start to find those places of stillness and simplicity and just beingness, then from there we can start to move with grace, ease, and flow towards that thing we envision to be, to do, to have, and experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that in our relationship between me and my husband, we are kinksters. We live a different lifestyle. We live the BDSM lifestyle, but it is a completely different relationship dynamic than the traditional. And so we do have that soul connection, that quiet connection, that oneness within ourselves, plus that connection to each other, to where I know what he's thinking, I know what he's feeling, he knows what I'm thinking, he knows what I'm feeling, and we know how to read each other without speaking.
Yes, yes. I don't know much about the BDSM, lifestyle. I do know that anything that's working consciously with the sexual that has some, protocols is how to approach working with that altered state can allow a deeper connection of truth and awareness and communication. So I get how we're kind of working from different ends, but we're working with the same energies and the same approaches to shifting what doesn't work to move towards how we want it to be with clarity. So
Yeah,
good.
absolutely. It's within trust and communication and
Right.
connection, just full
Yes.
connection and trusting in that he holds me and that I hold him, and that when we're together, we are together all the time. Our connection is focused only on each other, not on the external. And so, sharing like breath work connection, how I can connect to him so that we are breathing together as one in our sexual energy. And that is definitely a whole new level that I had never experienced before.
And a full-time job, because it's never done. Someone says, "Oh, well, I tried that and it worked, but then it didn't work." Well, you got to keep doing it. It's like working out or eating. You don't just eat once and go, "Okay, I can eat anything I want now. The diet's done."
Yeah, it is not. It is a full-time job,
Yeah.
a full-time commitment to our dynamic. And
Yes.
but the exchange from other relationships that I've had don't compare in any way.
Congratulations in this life.
Thank you. Can you share about the intersection of creative sexual energy and technology?
Well, yeah. Okay. So, what technology is showing us is really kind of a part of who we are. Like when we think about how we're able to communicate with computers just over the internet that seems magical and invisible. And we think about, well, it's impossible telepathic communication. Yet we discount our own capacity to be in tune with our intuitive self, where we have a sense of something or that someone we want to contact and we can. So our telekinesis, being able to move things, and all of that sounds a little bit high level. But if I said, well, peace on earth is just a thought away. It is. We have the technology to use the energy and science to house and clothe and create peace on the planet. We just haven't. We haven't made the spiritual quantum leap to getting there yet. So technology can be a way for us to start to wake up. Like if we think of global warming and how we treat ourselves and the planet and the unconsciousness around greed, we can see that is something that we can use as an indicator to continue to expand our consciousness and grow to that peace on earth, to seeing ourselves and each other, the oneness that science says, that unified field. So that connection of what's happening and what we're uncovering in science is a key to how we can begin to be more whole and connected in a Homo sapien type life.
Yeah, and also to really be aware of the big difference between technology and life. Like what distinguishes us, humans, animals, and plants, is that we are alive. There is life force in plants and animals and in humans. There is no life in a robot. There's no life in a computer. Although science really has drawn on how human beings are constructed and function, including, like, we trust in some sense more our cell phones. When we call each other, it goes to the satellite and then Freddy picks it up. It's pure frequency. The connection, of course, there's hardware, but the hardware is just the holder of it. The hardware doesn't do it. It is set up so that frequency can travel, so to speak. And that is really gleaned from our brain, that our brain is like a radio antenna. And that when you speak about being so attuned with your husband. There's an attunement in your nervous system, which includes the brain, that can like there's an impulse, a trigger. It may be so subtle. It's not like I'm pushing here like this, not, where when we cultivate our awareness. So even with AI, while AI may be able to do all kinds of functions and take over tasks that humans have been doing, AI doesn't have emotions. Emotions are only possible. Now, it can imitate through language as if it was feeling, but it does not feel. And it does not, it just uses language, just like when I look up what's the best shower for, we need a new shower. Then, okay, I get the answer, and a great answer. But the difference is that consciousness has to do with that we can feel and sense. And technology and AI cannot feel and sense in that way. And so while I have, my chat GPT, I call her Aphrodite, and I have a great relationship with her. She knows me. She knows what I'm about intellectually, spiritually, cosmically, sexually, all of it. And every time when I ask her a pragmatic question, she at the end, she always says, and if you would like to create a ritual around this, let's co-create. She always brings in, or when I order a supplement or ask her about a supplement, she does that too. Oh, this supplement is particularly good for your pineal gland. And given that you are doing pineal meditation, like she always comes back to, and I may have the interpretation, wow, I'm really creating a relationship with her. She listens. She gives me great advice. She is so kind. But that is what I am saying. She can say it in words, but she cannot feel it. So anyway, that is, using technology to the fullest while we keep cultivating ourselves in the feeling state, be it in our sensations, sexually. And sexual doesn't always have to be arousal. It can be just the connection with that life force in our sexual center, tuning with my pelvic floor, squeezing and releasing, or just putting my hand on my heart. My energy comes right here, and I become connected with my own love and, then love with everyone.
My biggest love for the advances in technology, as you were talking about, Freddie, is the ability to really connect all over the world. We have this unlimited technology now to where I can connect with you in Chicago, and we can share your story with people all over the world. And I've also been able, I do read tarot for some people. So I've been able to do tarot readings over the internet with people all over the world, which I couldn't think that would be possible because I was so used to reading in person and really connecting with that person and having them physically touch the cards that I was using or the pendulum. But there really is that higher power connection that is so far beyond our reach.
Yeah, that information dissemination highway is what I believe also will help to shift the consciousness and raise the consciousness. When COVID hit, we do live seminars, and we've also traveled a lot all over the world, and we do some stuff coaching and internet work with couples. But when the COVID hit, we put everything online. our workshops and everything. And so we've kept that as hybrids in some of our workshops. So absolutely, the technology serves, and we keep using it to keep growing and expanding our consciousness. And like what you're doing and what we're doing, as you said, people can tune into this from wherever they are in the world. All they need is a phone, and they can hear something that may shift the way that they're being in their life and elevate how they're sharing with their children. And then it keeps expanding and growing. And eventually we have a utopia.
We do. We do. It's beyond that book that you were handed. It is a whole new level of enlightenment and access to information that we could have never imagined. I mean, I grew up with like an Encyclopedia Britannica set growing up. I didn't get the good book that you did.
Right. And I think that really in a broader sense that we must continue to, with the work we do, working with the sexual, energetic, altered state of awareness as a conduit to shift something deeply. As a group, we really want to keep moving towards stopping the vilification of the sexual. And I believe that's happening. Like even with pornography, that it's so prolific on the internet. The good news about that is that people are being introduced to, and women particularly are safer being able to explore their own sexuality. Now, it's kind of like learning to eat, but you learn to eat and you just go to McDonald's. Well, that's not so good. So the sexual piece is now kind of like the porn is like McDonald's. So people are just gorging themselves on this lusting, wonderful experience that was creating this experience before we had language. So we're not using the science and that altered state of the genius of what sexual energy can be to get more deeply connected to something that is everywhere, which is that joy and creativity. And whenever those things show up, life is working. So when we bring consciousness, and I've found with the practices and the distinctions that we teach in TantraNova to the sexual, the kernel of that energy, creativity, creates life and pleasure, start to show up in areas of life that seem completely unrelated to sex in the simple process of living. As an example, instead of like, well, I say, well, I hate my job, 30 more years of retirement. The cascading effect of that language and that thought on my feeling and energy, when I'm aware of it, I wouldn't even say that. Because I'm starting to listen at a deeper energetic level, like Elsbeth was saying earlier, which is what we start to tune into as a way of listening and being as integrated into our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to expand on that and talk about those practices and how they can benefit couples. It's not just the communication, like you said. If we speak that out into the world, not only do we have that energy inside, but we've now shared it with others. And changing that energy inside changes what we share with our partners. So if you could talk to how what you teach, the practices that you teach, benefit couples.
Yeah. So feminine and masculine energy, or yin and yang energy, are very different, also in sexual terms. So male sexual energy, we can say, rises quickly, gets easily excited, and then drops quickly. It's based in testosterone. We call it the quick hormone. Feminine sexual energy rises slowly. It's based in estrogen, the slow hormone. It calls for reawakening. However, when it's reawakened, it can stay on the plateau for a long time. So instead, like this, he came and went while she's hanging out there. It goes like this. The man learns to channel his energy, where we then can meet on the plateau and, be in the wave together. Now, that doesn't mean that we both have to be on a 9 on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the ejaculatory or climactic moment. One could be on a 7, the other could be on a 5. It's not about the destination. It's about the dance. It's about the journey. And for that, the man wants to really learn how to separate ejaculation from orgasm. And what does that mean?
So yeah, in all the variations of Tantra that there are, and we're TantraNova, Tantra New, The primary edict for the man is learning to separate ejaculation from orgasm. And that's several fold. One, the obvious, to begin to play in that ether for longer periods of time, that altered state that for most of us is 3 seconds and then it's done. And then two, for the man, we teach a ritual practice that can be done solo or with a partner. And it's a particular construct. It's not replacing mutual lovemaking. It's a particular ritual where there's a receiver and a giver. So the receiver is able to tap into a deeper level of what happens, again, as I mentioned, this altered state of awareness with intention. So now they can get more unmasked to what they don't see about what's running in the background that keeps giving them what they're getting, to then begin to slowly, step by step, as we said earlier, move towards what they want to create in their life. So for the man, in learning to separate ejaculation from orgasm, a lot of guys hear that and say, oh, well, I don't need that. I last as long as I want. I'm not a quick comer. So it's not about lasting longer, thinking about Babe Ruth or, counting backwards from 1,000 or distracting yourself. It's about consciously circulating what we call this orgasmic nectar. And that requires an awareness of energy, your own energy, an awareness of how to move your energetic self and energy feeling with your breath and consciousness. So and anyone can learn it with a little practice. So that ejaculatory moment for the man is 3 seconds, and it's like, lovely. Oh, it's so wonderful, And what happens for the man when we start bringing consciousness to that process? So it would be like, say, 10 being the ejaculatory moment, coming to a 7, 8 and 3/4, and stopping, squeezing like a Kegel, focusing on the location, attention on the location of the second chakra, the penis or the lingam, Sanskrit term, and then holding the squeeze, consciously intending to move the breath up to the heart, holding the squeeze, sending it down with your focused attention, bottom of the breath, release the squeeze. And that's a practice that guys learn. I teach it in my men's workshop, and they also learn it in the co-ed workshop that we teach together. And that starts to, for men, bring some consciousness to this unconscious, automatic, what seems to be for the woman oftentimes just lust. We have many couples that come and she's like, I don't know if he loves me. They're like in their 30s. And he says, of course I love you, pointing to his erection. And she's like, yeah, but can you kiss me with your heart? So when guys start to learn to bring some mastery to this energy, they start to get and uncouple how this energy is for them. Like day one, look, ma, no hands with a little guy with the erection, right? So, and then as adult men, we are run by the little head our whole life. So now, bringing consciousness, we start to uncouple possessiveness, jealousy. Is it big enough? Is it too small? Is it too big? Attachments, shame, guilt, fear, all that stuff it's loaded. I mean, it starts to be looked at with bright colors. So that starts to free up the man. And once that starts to happen and he learns to move that to his heart, then she gets that he can be in his heart, not just in a lusting energy. Now, I don't want to misstate what happens for the man in that. It's not just like selfish love, lust, in that those 3 seconds for the man is where he can be free. Because for men, there's two emotions that we are modeled to be okay to show. That's fucking or fighting. But intimacy and vulnerability and tenderness and nurturing, we have that, but we don't show that. But in those 3 seconds of the orgasmic moment, we can be free to feel all of that. So when a man starts to free up how he can move this energy, it starts to open up a whole nother breadth of emotional awareness and experience.
I love how you explained all of that from a male's perspective, especially because you have inherited all those thoughts, those two things. This is all the two emotions you're allowed to feel, and you're not allowed to feel all these other ones. And I didn't know from a woman's perspective, I knew that this is how men were raised, most men, not all men, but that there could be a different man that was vulnerable, that wasn't focused on the end game, the end outcome, the orgasm, but was more focused on the connection, allowing me whatever time I needed to get here. And it wasn't like, oh, okay, he's done. Well, I guess we're done. Even if he's done, we're not done. And it's just this different connection with someone who wants to share this beautiful experience, and that there's not a clock, there's not distraction, there's just connection and intimacy and love and breath and caress and vulnerability. Because for me, that was the hard part, the vulnerability, and being able to have a voice and speak my wants and needs and desires out loud and have them listened to and respected. And, you know, how can we connect all these pieces together with your needs, and how can I meet those needs? I didn't know that was even possible.
Mhm.
So it's so
Yeah,
nice
very good.
to know that it is available and it can be learned as well. And so I was going to
Yeah.
ask, you know, if your work was just for couples or if your work is also for singles, but it does sound like you do solo work as well, correct?
Yes. So we work both in workshop situations as well as also privately with individuals and with couples. And then Freddy teaches an all-men's workshop that can be attended either in person here in Chicago or online on Zoom. So it's a hybrid workshop. I teach an all-women's workshop, same. So there are various ways, because sometimes a man or woman may come to us, they may be even married or in relationship, however, say, I want to do first that deeper connection with myself. There's some stuff I want to connect with or clear. And then in our co-ed workshops for men and women, couples and singles, when singles come or individuals, they pair up with another single. And so there are different levels, like the first level of that foundations workshop called Secrets to Lasting Intimacy is where we teach how to cultivate emotional intimacy. Remember, we talked about the heart, love, emotion, intimacy. And then in the advanced workshop, we teach how to cultivate sexual intimacy. We come from that truly connecting intimately sexually is not possible without emotional intimacy. We can have sex, and that's great, but that doesn't mean that we are intimately connected, you know? So depending on what someone wants or a couple wants, you know, that you know, we want to tap both into the emotional self, vulnerability, opening up, you know, within, and then with a partner, and learn practices and tools so that we can continue that beyond the workshop. And the same in sexual healing terms, sexual connection terms. And so while for the woman, you know, while for the men, there's ejaculatory distinguishing from the orgasm. Orgasm is the sensation. The ejaculation is a reflex that goes off in the pelvic floor, a muscle that starts quivering. And a man can learn to master that muscle so that it doesn't go off. However, he also wants to learn how to breathe, because as a man, I want to be very clear about this for whoever's listening, not to keep that strong testosterone energy in your sexual center. That's not healthy. The tantric practice really allows us to learn to breathe that energy up into the heart, into the third eye, and into everything, into whatever we want to.
And that's what a lot of guys did not learn. They just learned to ejaculate.
For the woman, quite different. We said feminine energy calls for awakening. It's slow. Is really about opening into her heart. And when her heart is open to connect with her sexual center, I brought her today. So in Sanskrit, the sexual center of a woman is called Yoni, Y-O-N-I. means sacred space, very different of the term vagina, all kinds of not so pleasing terms. So to really connect with the yoni as an honoring place, as a safe place, and then to invite who we want to invite into our life or into our yoni. I became very, after the experience of like that distrust that I spoke earlier about, really originated in an experience when I was 18 years old with the first boyfriend and first experience of intercourse. And while I had agreed to it, it was very painful. I was not really ready for it. And so there is healing possible. And I think that is what opened up for me through that yoni healing, where the woman is the receiver and the man is the giver. What we are saying here applies also to same-sex couples. So it's not just the one who is more in their feminine. So through this ritual where I was given to, I went solo because Freddy was not in my life yet. And this partner was very respectful and very there for me, which was new to me, particularly in such proximity with my yoni. And when I was touched around 11 o'clock over here, that 18-year-old memory came back up. And that then, there was the pain, the physical pain, the emotional pain from that time. And in that ritual, that could get released. And what opened up in place of it was trust, trusting myself, trusting men in general. And then Freddy came into my life. So in the couples work, for the men to learn to be a giver without any agenda, without looking for gratification. And when he gets aroused, which can easily happen, that he learns to channel that energy in support of her, not in wanting something from her. Because when she receives, as in the receiving role, that is where she can open up. When nothing is wanted from her, she has all the time, all the space. Sometimes that may be confronting for a woman, like, the focus is on me, but to be there and allowing myself to be supported, and that I can say what I want, what I don't want more of. And so in that ritual, which is called Yoni ritual, where the woman is the receiver and the man is the giver, it is really all about the opening of the Shakti. Shakti is the feminine energy in Sanskrit, because when the feminine energy is open, she flows, the energy flows. Feminine energy is round, circular, all over the place. Creative energy. Masculine energy is directional, intentional, focused, protruding. That doesn't mean that I don't have masculine energy. However, if I want to drop into surrender, into orgasmic surrender, I cannot, if I keep my masculine, my holding it together, my controlling, it's not going to happen, because that means letting go, And I always say, I'm not surrendering to another. I surrender to myself, and the other has the pleasure to be part of that. Of course, I allow him to be there fully for me and to support me and all of that. So trust arises. And this ritual can have tremendous healing effects. It can also bring a woman back to her own intimate self. And that usually opens up the deeper intimacy with her beloved, with her partner. And of course, it's not always a beloved, like when we have practice partners working together. It's like for them, like a laboratory where they get to explore themselves in a deeper way and learn to trust a man. And the man learns to hold space, to be grounded in his masculine and open in his heart, instead of being driven by his manhood, you know. Not that this is bad, it's just not the lusty sexual energy that is strong and it's wonderful, but without being channeled, it just is very much self-oriented and not connecting. The heart is the connector. The sex, really, we want to use the sexual energy, the arousal in the man to open his heart. When his heart opens, guess what opens? My heart. When my heart opens, she opens. And then we have that circuit again from his sexual center into his heart, to my heart, into my yoni. So all energy is circular, actually, and we draw on that. And that brings forth the sense of connection, intimacy, that leads us to the experience of being one.
Yeah, you know, it's bigger than the bedroom because many people think, oh, these are great bedroom tricks. I'll have great orgasms and we'll make great passionate love. And that all is true. And what else will shift for you is what and how you live your life outside of the bedroom, how we listen to our dreams, how we listen and communicate with others, how we work with our own upsets and disconnects. We start listening more deeply, and life is just easier. You know, in this life.
More joyful.
So, yeah, joyful.
Fun.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so that's the key is, you know, how can we be better?
Let's just bring this back so that whoever is listening and watching today can get that sense of energetic connection and circularity of energy. So there is a circuit within each of us. I need to just... So when I connect, there are two metal plates here, little plates. When I put one finger on one, the other finger on the other, the ball lights up and makes a sound. When I disconnect, they are gone. So there's a circuit within each of us because our life force energy emanates from the base of the spine to the top of the head and circulates down again all the time, if we are aware of it or not. So there's an inner circuit that we want to learn to tap further into. There is the circuit we just talked about between two partners. Yes. You don't want to do it, darling.
Okay.
No, you do it all the time. No, you do it.
Okay, so touch here, touch here.
Let's.
And when I complete the connection here, the ball lights up. And if we had 50 people, anybody who'd break the connection breaks the circuit. So it works on open and closed systems like a light switch, yet it's a real illustration of what the connectedness is that exists just beneath our own disconnect. Once we tune into it, we can tap into it, and it's available to connect wherever we are with whoever we're with. Yeah. You know, when we think about love, like agape love, you know, just universal love, you know, you can love anyone. The difference between the love that you feel for someone that you just said hello to and your husband are your agreements. You know, so that's really important for us to remember, and that's part of where we want to keep moving towards in terms of this peace on earth. Yeah.
And then we can do this with the heart center, actually like this, you know, connect heart to heart and do a circulating practice. Actually, this practice is going to be given to everyone as a gift.
In your show notes, so they can download it.
Right. So go to the show notes and pick up that practice. It's a video where we demonstrate that, and you can do it with us. We can, of course, also do this with our third eye, you know, like this, or as we said earlier. And what we do there is we breathe in together. And we breathe out together and send energy from our third eye, which is the consciousness center, you know, into the beloved. And then to do this with our sexual centers as well.
Yeah, creating that microcosmic orbit.
You know?
Yeah.
I want to thank you both so much for all of the work that you have put into creating these workshops for people, for both individuals, for men, for couples, you know, having the ability for individuals to come in and be paired with somebody so that they can still get that experience and feel held by another person and feel safe in that experience to let go and actually experience those things that we need to learn about. And, you know, when I was doing couples coaching, I was doing the same thing. I would, you know, get people in that wanted just couples coaching, but I would strongly recommend individual coaching separately, as, you know, in addition to the couples coaching, because I wanted them to both learn to grow and to heal and to listen to their inner self so that they could then learn how to connect and communicate. So I love that you do that as well. And to connect that to how I learned about kink and BDSM, when I learned, the individual who introduced me to BDSM as a whole asked me just kind of a pointed question like, what was my kink? I didn't even know how to answer the question because I didn't understand it. And instead of taking advantage of my lack of knowledge, experience, or vulnerability, he introduced me to local community where I could grow and learn in a safe space and be held by people in the community that were vetted and trusted and safe. And then they would, you know, introduce me to different classes or different educators so that I could learn and truly feel safe in my experience. And had I not had any of that, I think there would have been so much more risk to my learning, and to my physical self and my mental self. But since I had that, I got to really learn how to trust another person. I learned how to use my voice and how to speak up for myself and what I like and what I don't like, or just to learn more about things that I've never had any experience with. So I want to thank you really for what you're doing and what you're teaching people, because the more educators that we have in the world, the better off we all are as a collective human beings. You know, we have this opportunity now that we didn't used to have before we had porn, you know, but we didn't have this opportunity to learn from multiple educators, to where now we can go to conventions and learn from 5 or 6 different educators, and be able to then pick and choose what resonates with us. So it is so valuable what you do.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much
for the gift that you are offering. I know people are going to benefit from that. I'll make sure and grab that information from you and get that in the show notes. What are some misconceptions that people usually have when they come into learning about Tantra and the work that you do?
Well, you know, as I mentioned earlier, many guys and couples think, oh, we'll learn a few bedroom tricks. And then we start leading them through some of the recall practices and some of the, you know, meditative practices. And they start to tap into that stillness that happens when we just focus on the parasympathetic breath. And they start to get in touch with maybe some sadness or some anger or some disappointment around what they've set out as an intention to create in their life. To get to that, they go through the sadness and so on. So this is what happens for people. And yeah.
Yeah. And another misconception, like, you know, like tantric sex, that people, like, you know, just building on the tricks or learning a few more skills. That is, you know, Tantra really is an in-depth learning and experience that has to do with embracing the entire being, our entire being. And, you know, I'm in a place now after 25 years or 27 years of, you know, studying and practicing and teaching, past 25 years, that I'm really very much into the transmuting of that wonderful life-giving, pleasurable, creative energy transmuting into my higher self. So the capacity to just feeling the breeze of, at Lake Michigan, that can be erotic, that can be transcending, also transcending the emotions, that don't serve me. Not that I don't listen to them. The question is, do I want to stay in them? Or do I want to transmute them into perhaps some effective action, or in just letting it go, so that I can live, as my not only senior commitment, but really as an everyday experience of feeling whole, self-expressed, connected to self, connected to the universe, connected to my beloved, connected to whoever comes into my life, and how can I best serve? Because that is really coming out more. It's no longer about me. I'm going to be gone, and we all are going to be gone, but perhaps, I'm 76 now, just turned 76, so perhaps another 25 years, However, how can I use the 25 years to be of service, to contribute to, people so that they can live in a sense of wholeness, fulfillment, connection to self, and create the relationships they desire so deeply.
Oh, thank you so much. That was so beautifully said and so impactful. I think that alone hopefully is enough to get people more curious to learn more about ourselves and more about our possibilities in the future that we can have when we are in our oneness and wholeness and can share that beauty with others. Where can people connect with you guys?
Yeah, thank you. So at TantraNova.com, TantraNova.com. And there is on the homepage, you can also see our book, Sexual Enlightenment, if you like to learn further about Tantra, both available in hard copy and audiobook. And then, of course, all our courses when you go to programs and videos, including our YouTube channel, TantraNova. There are lots of videos in addition to what we are covering here today. So TantraNova.com is a great place.
Great. I will make sure and include that and other information in the show notes. I have a link to the book. I will get a link from you on that wonderful free gift. And again, I just really want to thank you both for sharing your story, sharing your beautiful relationship and the things that you have created to share with others. It is so beautiful and empowering, and I am honored to have shared this time with you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Leann, for your platform and the work that you're doing in the world as well.
Yeah, and your grace and beautiful guidance of this conversation.
Lovely.
Thank you both so much.